Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-hosts, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's happening, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain. That is Coach Kenny Simpson. We're joined today by Coach Erick Knickerbocker. Coach is an author and football coach up in, it's Connecticut, right? Like, you're way up there, man.
Way
so
up there.
Far up there. Good morning, Coach. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on. Really excited to talk about culture. And yes, we do play football in Connecticut. We do it.
It's okay. I figured the ice or the ground was still frozen over and, like, you know, it turns into Lambeau Leap all the time or whatever. So, well, Coach, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to us, talk about kind of where you're at coaching-wise, and then, you know, we can get into your book a little bit.
All right. So, yeah, I started coaching. Wasn't good enough to play in college, so I just kind of started coaching right out of high school. So I've been doing this for about 22 years, and I've been the head coach at Rockville High School for the last 8 years in Vernon. So when me and my staff got to Rockville, it was they had 15 straight losing seasons, and it was like 15 or 27 and 107, and you know it was not a good situation from the outside. A lot of people said, but it was my first head coaching experience, and you know we've had some success here. We've been to 2 finals. Unfortunately, we didn't win either one, but you know it's been a blast to kind of build culture. You know, I was part of a pretty good program where I was learning how to coach. And then, you know, I learned a lot of things of what to do and just as many things of what not to do when trying to build your culture. And I think one of the things that has been the most, you know, fun to dig into is like, okay, you start turning it around and you have some success. How do you maintain success? I think that's a question I always, you know, ponder and how do you keep it going, right? You do something good. And that's kind of what got me thinking about like all the things we've done, which led me to kind of put it down. I was like, I want to write a book that's a little bit different. And I read Coach's book about, you know, Find a Way. This is one of my favorite, you know, for high school coaches. I was like, what is it? And led me down a rabbit hole, which I'm sure we'll talk about, which hopefully it came out to be something that can help people ultimately.
That's awesome. Yeah, you know, I got to work with Coach Blankenship over at Owasso, Oklahoma, for a year, and he cracked me up with one of his, and he came on the other podcast a few times, but one of his things, he said he has a file of how to lose football games, right? And it's like over his 32 years now, I guess, or whatever it is, you know, how all the ways that he's screwed up and lost football games. But you could do the same thing with culture, right? Like, how do I accidentally how do I get this off the rails or whatever? So it's cool that you see both sides. Like, yes, these things help, and these are the things that don't help.
It's so fragile. I mean, culture is, you think you got it going right, and then the next day it's like, what did I do, or what are we doing now? And just because you've built something one year, there is some carryover, but it's like, you know, those are things I've learned throughout the years. Like, oh, I'll get it all figured out, and then it'll be good. But that's not really what culture is. It's an everyday kind of struggle, and you got to be willing to work at it every day.
Yeah, definitely the long route, right? It's not quick. It's not overnight, but it's like anything else, like trust or your credit score or whatever, right? It can be screwed up so quickly. It takes years to build it, and then overnight it seems like it can fall away. So, well, that's good. Kenny, why don't you jump into our quote of the week real quick, and then we'll knock out our ads and we'll get into this conversation.
Sure. Yeah. So quote of the week, excited to talk about culture. I think it's going to be neat to hear Coach and what he's done. Obviously, really cool to see that change he's made. So quote of the week's coming out of Team Themes Volume 6, which will drop in July. I've got it almost ready. We got to get it sent in and edited. It'll drop in July. We have Team Themes Volumes 1 through 5 already out. They've been good for our team as we're talking culture. We use them every week with our kids, but they're all over at FB Coach Simpson if you want them. This quote is from Simon Sinek. It says, "The best leaders don't always have the best circumstances. They have the best responses. Calm, decisive, and focused on what they can control." Which I felt matched what I knew we were going to talk about today. When you talk about culture as a leader, there are some things that you do control. but there's a whole lot of things you really don't. Like, you really don't ultimately control talent level. You ultimately don't control who you play. You don't control the environment that you're bringing kids in from. There's a lot of things you really don't control. And you can't focus on those things, or what it turns into is whining about, I wish this, I wish that, I wish this, I wish that. What you got to focus on is what you do have and what you can control. And if you do that, then that's what I think we're going to talk about. That's where you start to build a culture or an environment that allows people to be the best that they can be. I didn't mean to make the Army quote. Is that Army best? You be all you can be. That's Marines.
Be all you can be, baby. Yeah, that's the slogan. So good we had to come back to it. We left it for a few years and came back. So, awesome. Simon Sinek's a good author, and you can go. A lot of his works are
very good.
Not necessarily football related, but man, everything is football related, right? Like, you can kind of learn from anywhere. So he's got some good stuff. Awesome. Well, real quick, let's jump through these sponsors. Ace Sports, of course, is our title sponsor here. If you haven't given Ace Sports an opportunity to hear your vision and help you build that out, please do reach out. Email mark.bridges@acesports.com. Let Mark know that you've listened to the podcast. You're wanting to get started on a board. They do video boards, outdoors, indoors, scorers tables, ribbons, anything that looks like a screen you can see it in the NBA or college or maybe a big high school. They can build out those things. So I know it's, basketball season, the NBA is coming to a head here, and you see a lot of really nice stadiums. They can build something like that for your high school team at a reasonable price. If you're a football guy, because that's what the podcast you're listening to, it's probably a little bit late in the year to try to get something put in for this season, but definitely get the contract started and they can start building. I mean, they can do some miraculous things when they kind of get started. So let them see your dream and just kind of help build towards that. And no school's too small. Jump in wherever you're at, and Ace Sports can do something for you. Winning Edge Performance Analytics. I had a really good conversation with Doug last week about all the stuff he's offering this year. And it went from last year was kind of an end game, and it still will be, put in some data and see what the analytics say and see what the trends are. But it was no more than charting. It was just a very in-depth way to chart what's going on, and then it uploaded to your huddle. So you save tagging film later. And this year it's getting so much deeper, man. You can tag film up early and let it tell you what the opponent's going to do or trying to do. He took my entire defensive call sheet, which was hours of freaking work to put all this data in and then get it all. I had to do a bunch of reports to figure out what my defensive call sheet was going to look like, and all that's automated now. He just takes the film, you tag it, you put it in huddle, you upload it, and it tells you, it gives you a defensive call sheet is all automated. So super nice. He's got a lot of fun stuff coming out this year. The program's been revamped. There's a lot of bugs we found last year that have kind of come, but he's got them all fixed. So jump over to winningedgeperformanceanalytics.com. Make sure you use the promo code 20OFF Coaching 101. It saves you 20% off on your first year and kind of lets you know where the traffic's coming from too. So don't be afraid of that. And then last but not least, Blended Threads LLC. They're a small company, embroidery company, screen printing company here in Oklahoma that's just doing wonderful things. Great products. Morgan at blendedthreadsllc.com is the email. Just reach out to her and see what she can help you do. If you want to build a pro shop, you want to kind of swag out your coaches this year or get practice shirts made or whatever it is you're wanting to do, man, they have found ways to keep prices low for coaches. They understand where we're coming from. We all have very limited budgets. So jump over to Blended Threads LLC and see how they can help you. All right, let's jump into it, man. So part one here, we are talking about rebuilding culture. And I know culture has been a buzzword for, well, it seems like endless number of years since I've been in the game and understood enough about football to get on, beyond the X's and O's and start seeing what's going on behind the scenes. Culture has always been one of those big words. Coach Knickerbocker, you have written a book about it and kind of your trials and tribulations and what it took to rebuild. And we kind of, started on that a moment ago with it is hard to keep it going. So talk to us about the book. What really made you want to write a book about it and kind of what did your journey look like in turning around the culture there?
Sure. So when I was younger, I don't think I picked up many books. Started coaching, and my head coach at the time, who coaches with me now, handed me a John Wooden book, and I started reading. And for the last 20 years, I've been reading leadership books and culture books and really, picking a few things here and there out of them. And I always had the back of my mind, wouldn't it be cool to kind of write a book? There's books out there that are very much like theory based and this is what you should do. And then there's also like, you got like the twin thieves, you got coach to coach, you have like the stories kind of there too. And my idea was like, would it be kind of crazy to try to tie the two of them together, but let's use a story of kind of how it's played out, leaning on some of these theories I've used from Bill Belichick or Nick Saban or, John Gordon, all these places that I've leaned into. And then how did it actually play out in the real world and in getting real people, the players and what impact the culture could have. So that was my idea. The biggest thing, and I've talked to a bunch of people that have written things, is like kind of sat on that idea and it was like really afraid to actually do it. Afraid of like putting yourself out there. I think being an author is like really scary the first time you do it. Because everyone's like, well, why is someone going to care about a school in Vernon, Connecticut? Why does it matter? And that was like a big hurdle to kind of get over. But some of the stuff in the beginning of my book was really about why I coach and very big things that happened in my life that kind of pulled me to coaching. And I was like, if this can help somebody, it kind of changed from being afraid to feeling obligated to kind of get that message out there. So that's kind of what I did. So the book kind of goes back and forth. It'll go through some like theories that I've learned along the way, but then it will go into like year one of the rebuild. This is a situation that played out and how it played out, and try to connect the dots of the characters the best I can. The story kind of spans 7 years, but I try to kind of bring it all back together. And that was like the most fun part, is connecting those two things that are two kind of separate books into one.
That going public with your voice, and I don't care if it's a podcast like we're doing today, if it's writing books, which Kenny apparently has. I don't know, Kenny. You can write all the books and do all the podcasts. I think he could start his own TV show. But for the rest of us mere mortals, it is scary, man. It's scary to put yourself out there. And what if I make a mistake? And what if people take it wrong? Or like it's in the end, you just gotta kind of just do it. So I'm excited that you got it done, man, and getting that book knocked out. Especially with something so different as culture, because everyone thinks they have the answer and everyone thinks that their answer is the best. I guess it's no different writing a book on buck sweep because everyone's going to do it different. But yeah, so I mean, it is a crazy place to be to put out your first book. So I'm excited that you got it done.
Yeah, and the process like of writing was really fun. I it's so reflective as a coach. Like I've done a couple talks since, and I was like, even if you want to write a book, like write down reflections of a season and go through things. It is so powerful. Like I started writing the book, I was like, oh my gosh, we did this back in year one, and why the heck am I not doing that now? And you just it makes you really kind of do a deep dive of everything that's you've learned in coaching. And I think sometimes I think as coaches, like we're focused on whatever the biggest problem is currently in front of us, and sometimes we forget about we wouldn't even have gotten to this problem if we didn't do this, this, and this. And I think the book and writing really made me, think about that. And listen, I wasn't a great English student, and like you could do it. You don't have to be, you don't have to be this unbelievably gifted academic, as long as you have people around you that will help you, which I did. So I think that was the other thing. I was like, I don't know if I ever got an A in English, so I don't know if I should be writing a book, but you just got to go for it. And it was such a cool experience. And I've met a lot of new people that it would have never come across in my life just by going out there and doing this.
That's why they make the internet, man. We can all look like professional writers with the internet out there, right? Like there's too many tools now. Well, that's awesome, man. And so talk to us about your journey, kind of those first few years. I know you said earlier how, the school was not doing very well, 15 years losing streak or losing seasons. So what did that, kind of talk about your first pieces of the journey, getting on board and starting to turn the tides, talk us through that part of your journey.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of unique because I'm a history teacher, love history, love local history. So I got to Rockville and I live in the town next door. So Rockville, their most famous alum, I'm sure you guys know this name, Bill Romanowski, played here. So we've had a couple of NFL guys and they had some success. So what I did early on was really dig into the history of the program. And I went into all the newspapers I could find, interviewed everybody, because when I walked in the hallways, there was nothing resembling any type of success or even anything at all. So I thought the first thing of building a culture is you have to have some kind of identity. And I think a lot of times we come in and we want to say, this is our way, this is how we're going to do it, we're going to build it from scratch. But I think if you're coming into any type of program that has some type of history, like that's just that you got to lean into that. So I think in the first year, I really tried to learn as much as I could about what had happened here from 1891 when they first played football up until 2018. I think that was like the most important thing. And I always say to people that I'm working with, like creating that vision and mission. So like we came up with Restore the Rock. That would have never come about if we didn't do our due diligence of figuring out where the program had been before. Even if we want to run a totally different program, you got to know where the program's been before. And I think that's kind of like the journey I took to start this whole culture building. That led me down kind of a rabbit hole of like, all right, the teams in Vernon that were successful, they were, very much blue collared, hardworking. They had an identity to them. And once we started leaning into that, we're like, okay, well, that's kind of the kid we have right now. Maybe not exactly the same, but there's similarities. Then you start bringing those people in to start talking about that. And it all starts connecting. To me, again, being a history person, everything connects. And if you can connect the past to the present, even if it's different, we've had a lot of power with that. I think that's like the biggest thing we did early on to kind of turn it.
Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, no, I have just a couple notes I've been taking. First part, when you started talking, so guys that are listening, that you've got a fear of putting something out. I can obviously relate to Coach about when you put materials out, there's going to be critics. There's going to be a lot of things. And then I'm a big DC Talk fan. I know it's an old school Christian group. You guys probably have never heard of them. Back in the 90s, there's this Christian group called DC Talk. And one of the songs they put out, they quote some quote before they do the song. And it says, the greatest cause of atheism in the world today is Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their lips and then they walk out the door and deny him with their lifestyle, basically condemning hypocrites. And that was always my biggest fear of putting anything out, whether it was Christian, football, whatever, is who am I? Because I know all of the mistakes that I have made. Who am I to teach other people? But the other thing I want to kind of tell you, if you're living in that world and you're living in that fear, is the Bible also, I think it's like 500 times starts off with the words, fear not. Like, fear not, do this, fear not, do this. So if you're in that world like Coach is, I think it's awesome that we have more coaches putting out materials to help other coaches. And so, but there's going to be a voice in the back of your head, Coach mentioned it, that who am I to do this? Who am I to do this? Coach, who am I to do anything? Who are you to do anything? We are here to help each other. And I think if you come about it with that mindset, which it sounds like you have, and just kind of talking to you just for a couple minutes, it sounds like you have, then people are going to want to listen. The second point I wrote down that you brought up was you would be amazed as a coach when you put things out in front of other people, be that your own team, be that your own staff, be that just you. Teaching is the best way to learn. Like, that's how we learn. Like, you have to know the material well enough that you could teach it to somebody else. That's how you learn. And that's how we try to work with even our own kids, is if our seniors can coach our ninth graders, we've taught them pretty well. If they can't, we haven't. So like Coach said, write down notes about what you did well and didn't do well, and go through that. And then the last part, Coach got into kind of talking about culture. I love you talking about identity, like lean into what's there. You can't just walk into some random place and say, hey, follow me to this new different path, and I don't even know anything about you. Nobody's going to jump on board that train. Like, you've got to be invested in the community that you're in to get them to want to buy into where you want to go. I promise you, people will buy into a coach who can help them better themselves. They will. They just have to know you can do that. And obviously in our profession, ultimately we're judged on wins and losses. Ultimately, that's going to be the judge. You can preach all you want. If you're not helping our team get better, you're just a preacher. You're not a coach. Like, you have to, proof is in the pudding. Are you helping me become a better player? Are you helping our team become a better team? If you can do that, I promise you, people will listen and they'll want to do that. One of the things we always talk about with our coaches when we bring them in, a lot of times we'll hire a coach from like a rival school. Like, I'll go to a school that we played against and I respected them, and so I go hire them. Or I'll go hire a coach from maybe not even a rival school, just a different school. So wherever you're at, you need to be drinking the Kool-Aid of that place. So like when you were the guy I was playing against and I was trying to whip and you were trying to whip me, there's no hard feelings there, because when you're in, you better be all in. Like you better drink the Kool-Aid, your whole wardrobe better be their clothes. It all better, but now that you're with us, it's got to flip. Now you got to drink our Kool-Aid. Now you got to be part of what we're doing. And I think that's when you start to get the culture to change a little bit. You got to do all that stuff first before you can really even get into them wanting to hear from you. Like if you're not, I don't understand how coaches can be in a school and not live in the community. Like I just don't understand how that can work for you to create the culture you really want to create, because you need to be there so people can buy into what you're trying to do to help them. So sorry for the long rambling answer. I was just kind of writing notes as coach is going.
No, that's okay. That's kind of where we're at. That the rebuilding culture takes a lot of forms, right? There's a lot of, like you said, Kenny, you need to be in the community. You need to be here. Different people see it different ways. So, I mean, that's good. Second part here we're kind of jumping to is getting buy-in, and this originally started with just players, but I think the more you look at culture, you'll see that it is a top-down thing, right? Because kids pretty much buy into whatever. That's kind of been my experience. Like whoever's talking in the room, the kids are like, yeah, I'm getting behind that guy, as long as they're not just a tool bag. The kids will get behind them, and so that getting that buy-in seems to be less difficult than the coaches and the administration, right? It's the adults in the room that you have to get understanding what culture is, what it means to turn around culture, to get over the, whatever their mindset is of we're just this little school and this is what we do. We have 15 losing seasons consecutively. That's the norm here. So it seems like getting that buy-in and that alignment and that really start the rebuild of that culture starts with the adults in the room. Coach Knickerbocker, was that something you experienced there? I know you said you kind of had to come in and make some big changes. Were the kids pretty easy to work with, or did you have to convince them as well?
So I think one of the things you did early is try to involve the kids as much as you can. And I know we hear a lot about like player-led leadership now, and I think it's a buzzword. It is. It's very difficult. But I think it's something that we wanted to value early on. Like, I asked the kids, and again, I didn't understand what I was getting into, but I asked the kids, I said, well, what's your goal? And one of the kids said, well, my first goal is just not to get laughed at when I wear my jersey down the hallway on Friday. So that changes everything for me when I hear something like that. Okay, this is where they're at, right? I think getting player buy-in, it takes time to get kids to actually speak their own truth to you. Like you come in as a new coach and nobody wants to say the actual truth to you because they want to play, they want to get on the field. So I think the first couple of years was kind of tough with that. But giving them avenues. And I think another challenge we have as coaches, ever since like whatever, phones, COVID, you want to say all of it, is just getting kids to talk face to face and having those conversations and trying to build that into your program. Like we meet every Thursday morning. Like right now, this part of the season, we invite anyone on our team that wants to come, and we'll go through like some of our principles of culture and just get people talking about it. Like I know it doesn't sound like a big thing. We'll bring donuts in. It's nothing like that for them, but it breaks down walls between kids, and it breaks down walls between me as the person kind of, here's the culture we want to have, and the kids kind of owning it. I think with administration, I think one of the things is like I set them, here's the short term, here's the long term, where we want to go with the program. And I've been blessed and lucky that they've been super supportive of it. I know there's plenty of horror stories out there that people that don't have that, but I think you can't really grow a program if you don't have administrative and coach support. If you don't have administrative support in your building and at a district level, there's really only so far you can grow your program. That's just what it is. So I think having those conversations early, this is what I want to do. And it's important to me and important to us, and getting people to kind of buy into that is a whole different thing. And with coaching, I'm a huge culture guy. Like I'm culture. But I also have coaches that are, they really want to talk about the technique, of blocking. And that's what brings them back to the game, or the X's and O's, and trying to explain that to older and younger coaches. Like this is what is going to drive our program. And you got to buy into that too. So I think it's interesting you guys bring up the coaches, because I have great coaches, but again, are they all here because they love my culture? No, they have to learn and embrace it. And also we got to pull in what's important to them, because the culture shouldn't be what I dictate, right? It's kids, players, community should be everything. And I think sometimes we come in and say, all right, these are going to be our core values. This is going to be what we value. This is what we're going to do. But we forget we have a football program has so many different stakeholders that you have to try to find what is it all of us collectively can agree upon.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It is a collective. It isn't just you. And if you try to make it just about you and you isolate yourself as the supreme leader of this culture that we're going to build out, if you can't give ownership to other people because you're afraid they'll screw it up or they don't get a voice, now you're trying to build it all on your own, which is going to be really difficult, right? Like that's almost impossible, I would say, for you to try to lead a whole community worth of culture all by yourself. Just because, like you said, Kenny said, you got to move into the community. It means you're an outsider to start. And now you're an outsider who has a voice that's different from the collective. And that's going to create a lot of roadblocks, right? So it really does have to be what's best for all of us. I'm not saying you can't guide them places. But yeah, I mean, to have success, I think there have to be some middle ground there.
Yeah, I wrote down right there at the end. You talked about values. What really ultimately matters in your program, and like you said, it can't just be you. Like if it was Coach Simpson's household and his children, these are our values and these are our standards, and this is kind of where we are. But I'm working in a public school with people from all kinds of different backgrounds who come from all kinds of, I've got to figure out collectively what's a realistic value we share that we can get behind together. And that's where the values come. And then you got to be careful. Like, don't give them 35 rules. I mean, good night. Give them one or two. Like, here's one or two of our things. We give our kids, we call it rules of dumbness. Rule number 1, don't do anything dumb. Rule number 2, if you break rule number 1, don't do it on campus or record it. Rule number 3, if you break rules 1 and 2, don't post it. And if you can kind of avoid those 3 rules of dumbness, you stay out of my office and we don't have to handle stuff. Like, would I prefer just to say rule number 1 and then we don't have rules 2 and 3? Of course. But I also know that we're dealing with different kids. That they're going to break rule 1. Maybe we can just avoid 2 and 3 so we can keep it minimized. I think you got to be an expert in your craft. Like, what do you bring to the table? Coach mentioned it. Like, you have different people in this world in football and they argue, and I don't know why they're arguing. You have people that culture, scheme doesn't matter. And then on the other side, you have scheme, and talent. Culture is just a buzzword because there are teams that have won without having a great culture. I mean, look at the NFL, so I think there's value in both. And I don't understand why you would suggest that you don't need both. Like, absolutely. You need to be an expert in your craft and whatever your craft is, and then because of that, you can now share the culture you want to share. But if you're not an expert in what you're supposed to do, why would I listen to you? Like, what value are you bringing to the table here? So I wrote that down too. If you're not bringing value to the table, you're not going to get buy-in. Like, what are you going to do that's going to make me a better football player? Because ultimately that's what our profession is, coaching the game of football. Would I like to teach deeper values? 100%. Ultimately, I am paid to teach these kids how to become better at football and win football games. And you have to understand, we can preach all this other stuff we want to get to. Like, we want to teach young men how to become better men. We want to. But if you only do that and you go 0-10, they're going to fire you. At least they are in the South, So you got to make sure you understand what's first, and then I can get to this other stuff. So I've got to bring some kind of value to the table, or these kids aren't going to listen. I wrote down too, when we used to read little books, my wife and I would read little books about how she was trying to teach me to be a better husband, which I needed. There was one of the books that talked about how you're supposed to have this bank where you put in like positive. So when you pull out, you're not leaving that, I think it was called an emotional bank empty. And I'm still working on that, but it stuck with me enough to where I said, like, when we get on the field, I coach the crap out of those kids. Like, I coach them hard, and there's not a whole lot of emotional bank love language going in there. So when am I going to do that? Well, it needs to kind of be off of the field during breaks maybe between the locker, maybe in the weight room where hey, we see your value. Hey, great job today. Hey, whatever it might be, so when we get to on the field, I can coach them up. You got to be able to coach them up. I don't think you can force things. So like Coach mentioned, he does a Thursday morning deal where they have donuts and they talk about whatever it's going to be. We do a team theme where we kind of go through a theme of the week. Other schools do whatever it is. I think programs can help. I also think they can hurt. Like, I think sometimes if you do a program just to check it off a box and it doesn't really fit the culture scheme, your group, it'll almost do more damage than it would do help, because now they feel you're forcing something on them instead of choosing to come to it. So I think that you got to be careful when you get into like, we want to do this great program for our kids. You got to do what Coach said. How does this fit our community? How does this fit our kids right now? How does this fit our coaches right now? If you can't really answer it, you just saw it on Twitter or work for this team that won a state championship down the road. I don't know if I would institute that. Like, what's going to fit us and what we're going to do. I think you need to do something, but it needs to probably fit something that your kids want to be a part of, so then it can be effective. I put down also, last thing I've got on here was big picture. Like, I think a lot of people struggle because they don't see the big picture as a head coach. We only get this tunnel vision about my program. So we don't see what these kids are going through off the field. We don't see what our assistant coaches are going through off the field. And so, we're not putting those deposits in the bank. We're not letting these people know, hey, I'm here for you. I want to help you. I'm just looking at how can I win football games. And you got to be really, really careful in that world, because people are going to immediately realize, I call that a transactional coach. Like, I'm here and you're here for this 2 hours a day so we can win games, and then you go do your thing and I go do my thing, and that's it. It's going to be hard, in my opinion, to be successful if that's how you're viewed by your players and your coaches. Like, you're going to have a hard time they'll do things because maybe they're scared not to, but they're not doing things because they want to. And I think that's where you got to kind of work on.
You both kind of hinted at it here and talked through this piece, but man, you really do have to meet people where they are. And I think this is in so many places in life. It isn't just culture. It's what maybe you are an X's and O's coach, and you still got to meet people where they are, right? You can't go install the Saban's Rip Liz match in day one. It's just kids may not understand. You have no idea what their background is, right? And so culture is the same way. Coach Knickerbocker, I know you talked earlier about, taking pieces of Coach Saban's book and all the pieces of all these different books you read and try to make it your own. And I think that's good that you did it that way, because some people would read Saban's book and be like, that's it. That's our culture. We are Alabama Crimson Tide or the Miami Dolphins or the LSU Tigers of old, and this is the culture we're going to have. And it doesn't fit, right? It's not what your team needs. It's not what is going to fit your community. You don't have a bunch of 4- and 5-star athletes running around. So sometimes you got to be the X's and O's to win games, because that's what you got, right? You got to get those kids taught up to know some football knowledge so they can win some situations to go out and win some games. Culture's cool. Sometimes you got to go out and just actually put the pedal to the metal and win a football game. So I guess my question to you, Coach, is there any spot along the way that was kind of the aha moment that your program had taken that step, whether it was an admin giving you a leeway or a coach buying in and saying, fine, I'm here, let's do it? Was it the kids? What was that aha moment when you're like, hey, we got this thing rolling?
Yeah, I think there was a couple. I mean, the first year we every day it kind of felt like, are we making that kind of progress? We ended up winning 7 games. We snuck into the state playoffs. The way it happened in Connecticut is we didn't know going to bed the night before. So we're at a game scouting and we find out, and that was a pretty crazy moment of, getting that kind of text out there and the people's response. The year after we went undefeated, and a lot of the kids kind of felt like, our vision, which I think is the biggest thing. It's the hardest thing, I think. And I heard, Coach talked about big picture. So when we set the vision of Restore the Rock, that drove everything. When I think about culture, I think about and John Gordon talks specifically about a mission, a vision that puts you actually on a mission to do something. And I think our kids like really bought into that, right? You're not going to get them to buy into every little thing, but they all wanted to restore the program back, right? So that drove us. We did that, and then we went to the state championship. And the interesting thing was, at some point we're like, okay, I think we've made the turn, but what's next? And we just switched over last year to Raise the Rock, like that's our new one, and that was hard to make that change because we got so ingrained about restoring the Rock and like feeling like we're making this progress to doing something. But then along the way, you kind of did it and you're like, okay, it's time for what's next. But like I've told coaches, like for me, the number one reason that I think we turned the program around was we had that really clear vision that really put all of us on a mission that we could get on and say, we're trying to do this. And we knew what it looked like. I think sometimes as coaches are like, oh yeah, we want to win a state championship. It's got to be something that's got a little bit more meat to it, in my opinion, at least. But again, it depends where you're at, I guess, right? If you inherit a program that wins state championships all the year, maybe your vision is going to be a little bit different. But to me, that was what really helped us feel like, oh yeah, we've got to a spot, but now we got to kind of pivot and we got to go to the next spot, which was a whole nother challenge.
I think that's a great place to be, and it's good that you had that awareness. Like, I don't want to say the message runs thin, but mission accomplished, right? Like we restored it. It's back. Now let's make it better. I think that's really neat because it is easy to just stay with the norm. Once again, culture is an ever evolving thing, right? And it would probably easy for the last coach to just not have to go out and worry about a bunch of expectations, right? Because once you start winning games, what do they expect? They expect you to win more games, right? I mean, Kenny has a 10-0 season, and I bet the expectations at Southside High School are like, we're going to go get us a ring at some point, right? And so if he goes out and has a 5-5 year, hey, what's going on over here? Why aren't we as good as we used to be, right? So it's, with success brings the expectation for more. So I bet it would be easy to just sit in the past and be like, look at everything we've done. Almost gap in the gain mentality of we've done all this gain, not looking at the gap ahead. But now you got to, at some point, you have to go acknowledge there's the gap in where we want to be still, and turn your philosophy into, taking on that challenge. So I think that's pretty cool that you just had I'm going to say audacity. It may not be the right word, but the audacity to say, okay, now let's go to the next level. That we did the thing that we weren't, we didn't know if we could do or not. We did it, and now let's move on.
And I think really funny, quick story. Like I think what really helped me is we went 9-1 a couple years ago. We lost in the quarterfinals, so 9-1, pretty good season. And I'm in a diner and I see one of my old teachers, and he comes up and he goes, "Pretty rough season for you guys this year," So that just shows you how expectations change. I was like, okay, well, our reality has changed. We're not restoring anything anymore. Like that's done. It's time to take a step forward. And I think that's a crazy thing as a coach. I think the hardest thing is now that you have built something with expectation, how do you continue to grow it? There's a lot of room. There's all kinds of room for growth, but you're also dealing with expectation pressure. And I've talked to many coaches. They're like, Coach, the best part is the first couple of years of getting in and turning a program around. Nothing is more fun and enjoyable because afterwards comes, well, why didn't you win the state championship? Why didn't you do this? And so that was a funny way, but also kind of a kick in the butt. Like, all right, I got to drive the ship a little bit differently and change where we're trying to go.
I got to talk to Coach Bush, and I'm looking up his first name right now. Down in Texas, he was the slot T god, they called him, or the Godfather. I'm gonna get his first name here because I'll screw it up. Travis Bush, I think, was him. Bruce, not Travis. Bruce Bush but I got to talk to him when I was down in San Antonio last year for one of their big Texas coaches conferences, and he told me 6 years. After 6 years, go somewhere else because the fun's out of it for you. You've made all the changes you're really going to make. You're at the top of the mountain, or you failed to get there, but you're not going to get there because the situation can't support that success. 6 years. Go to another school. He said, I never stayed anywhere longer than 6 years. And this guy has a 45-year career or whatever. Like he's still doing. I think he's at the collegiate level now, helping with anyway, a college school down there. But you kind of you hit the nail on the head there, Coach, with like the fun part is those first few years. You make the changes, you show what you're doing as a coach. You get all the turnaround, you get the people to buy in, you achieve success, and now it's what now? And so you do have to make that pivot. And you look back at legends like that who once again, he's kind of the godfather of the slot T in South Texas, and he kind of runs it down there. Well, really, the whole state of Texas. And you look at people that's been there, and they're like, "Yep, you got to at some point you got to go somewhere else." So that's kind of it's kind of neat to see. What you said, you're at year 8 now.
Yeah, this is year 8. So
yeah.
we kind of pivoted right after year 6 and 7. So it makes sense.
Yeah,
we've had to make a little bit of a change.
There you go. All right, let's jump in this last piece here, and we're going to talk about things that like the untold truths, right? So what's going on behind the scenes? There's coaches listening right now who are going to take their first ever head coach this year or next year, and they're going to get a program that good programs don't come open. That's pretty much an established fact. So they're going to take something that isn't as good as it can be, and they have to flip it. So what are those truths that nobody talks about that those guys have to look forward to? Eric, we'll start with you, man. Just what are some things you faced along the way? You're still at the school, so don't burn any bridges here. But what are things that surprised you, right? And just,
I think one of the things that people tell you this all the time, but like you really got to develop. Not everyone's going to like you at all. I think that's a really hard pill for me to swallow. It was a hard one for me to swallow. And you're going to have to stand true to what you believe in, and that might upset people, and certain people they might not fit in your program because they can't do those things. And I think early on I was like, I'm going to do this and everyone's going to love it and we're going to love it. And that's just not what it is. It is hard work every single day. And if you do start turning it, like I said, the work gets harder. And I sometimes, again, I'm like, am I doing it right? I think there's a lot of that too. Just with writing the book, it's the same with coaching and turning it around. There's that self-doubt all the time. I think when you're a head coach and kind of the buck stops with you, that's the mentality I always kind of have. Did I do that right? Because you're going to have a lot of voices. There's going to be a lot of people telling you a lot of different things, and you really got to trust yourself and your core group around you. But those are kind of two things that I don't think anyone can really be prepared to be a head coach, but those were two of the things that I think jumped out to me the most.
Yeah, I wrote down just a couple things on that too. So the question basically is like the stuff that people wish they knew that no one tells you. Well, number one, I put down talent matters. I mean, it does. And I don't know how to say that nicely. So a lot of times what you have as a coach is you come in there and you have a certain standard you want to hit, and your most talented kids, unfortunately, usually they're the ones that are farthest away from it. So you got to figure out, how am I going to play this? Am I going to cut the kid, not have a lot of talent, and work with kids that I would like to work with because I enjoy them and they've bought in already, like they were the easy ones? Or do you figure out, okay, we need this really talented kid. How much am I willing to put up with? And that's where I think where the ultimate question for every head coach comes in is, what am I willing to put up with to make sure that we have the best available talent pool to us? And you got to figure that out. I can't answer that for you. Coach can't answer that for you. But my thought was we try to always meet every kid where they are and understand that, we have to develop these kids. And at some point you may have to let them go. And that's part of it. But if you go in there kind of bullheaded with, this is who we're going to be and this is what we're going to be in a school that's already kind of deprived of talent, that's probably a recipe for disaster. I hear a lot of times these coaches wanting to go in like drill sergeants and there's 25 kids on the roster. Mm-hmm. That probably ain't going to go real well, because you get down to less than 11, you don't get to play anymore. So you got to kind of figure out where we're at. So I think that you got to figure out a way to try to develop your talent as good as you can. Obviously, you want to maximize the kids' ability. You want to continue to improve. But talent matters, and if somebody's telling you it doesn't, they're lying to you, or selling something, one or the other. Number two, I think schemes got to match your kids. And this is coming from a guy who I literally have a scheme that I sell. But it matched our kids. We matched our kids with our scheme, and every year we evolve our scheme to continue to match our kids. And I think a lot of times, again, if somebody's coming to you saying, if you run this scheme, you're going to win guaranteed, man, I'd be really careful of that. Like, I'm a guy who actually sells a scheme, and I would never say that. I would say, here's what we do and why we do it and how it works, and you need to adjust it to your kids. And so you need to constantly be evaluating how we're going to adjust our scheme to match our kids, because ultimately, you can be the greatest culture guy and your kid will run through a wall, but if they're running the wrong direction, you're going to lose. So we got to get them going the right direction where they need to be. Then the last one Coach hit on, you're going to lose people. Like when you make a change at any place, you're going to lose people. Some won't surprise you and you're going to be glad to see them go. Some will surprise you and it'll hurt, and understand that's coming, and understand if you were sitting in the leadership role, that's a very lonely seat. Like it's a very, very lonely seat, because you can have friends that you work with, but ultimately you're their boss, and so it's not really, there's an awkwardness there. Like there will be a group text with all of your coaches not counting you. Like that's going to happen. There's going to be people that talk, and when you walk in a room, they stop talking. Like that's what happens when you're put into a leadership role, especially if you're trying to make changes. Like especially if you're coming in and you're not trying to be friends with everybody because you're trying to take the program to where it needs to go. It's a lonely place, and you got to be aware. Like you got to be aware and okay that, hey, some disagreement and some whatever, that's normal. But you also got to be aware of who's a snake in the grass that you need to get rid of. So you got to figure out who you got to lose, who you got to keep, what you're willing to accept. There's just so much juggling with people. And I think that's where people that become a head coach, no one really talks about, is your constant job is juggling people. Like it's probably 1,000 decisions a day on how you're going to handle this or handle that or deal with this or deal with that. And a lot of those decisions, you're never going to be able to be right. Like there's not going to be a right answer. It's just written on a board. This is right and this is wrong, or we would all choose the right answer.
That's right.
That's just kind of how that goes. So
there's a lot of gray, right? A lot of
that's
gray.
right. You got to know that. And that's what I would tell people. Talent matters. You better find a good scheme that's going to match your kids, and you better be very comfortable being lonely.
A couple pieces here, and one, and it kind of coattails on stuff y'all have already said, but not everyone understands what success looks like. And just because you've seen it somewhere doesn't mean that you can go all in with that successful blueprint at a new place, right? It's going to rock the boat, people up and down. Your parents might be upset if there's a new standard, a new expectation that's more work for them. Your admin might be upset if you've created more work for them, if they're having to constantly double check that what you're doing is allowable, because they're used to the status quo, which was maybe do nothing, maybe do absolutely nothing until fall camp starts. And now football can be football. So you have to understand that going in, that people are going to, y'all have said it, disagree, not like you. Fact of the matter is they may not want that there at all. They may not support what success takes. I know we talk a lot in this podcast, the other one, in my writings and all the stuff that I do for football about, we don't have to have this old school mentality of grinding 7 days a week as a coach. Some people want 0 days. Some people don't want a grind. Some people don't want the work. So you have to understand that's where some people are going to come from. The other thing, and I actually steal this from the military side, and that is do what your rank will allow. That's something we talk about is kind of a don't get yourself in trouble. Militarily, if you're a private, there's not a lot you can do because your rank is constantly going to be in trouble. But as you gain rank, you have more freedoms, right? You've got more, you can explain more situations away. So do what your rank can allow. Same thing with coaching. If you're a brand new assistant coach, you're probably not getting a lot of say-so in culture, and you need to buy in. You need to be rowing the boat the same direction, or laying the bricks, or carrying the water, whatever the culture thing is around your place. But your rank may not allow you to make very many changes. And as you get into the big seat, I just faced that. I was a first-year head coach that thought I had more rank than I had, right? So sometimes even as the head coach, your rank doesn't allow you very much, and they will make changes. So you can only do what your rank will allow, whatever that means to you in the football world. Awesome. Well, guys, I think we kind of crushed it here, man. Talk about rebuilding it, how to get that alignment from each, up and down the chain, and then some of those ugly truths nobody's talking about. Eric, man, we're very appreciative of you to jump on today. Before we get going on our sales here, tell us where people can go to buy your book. What's the name of it, and all the good stuff there.
All right, so my book is on Amazon, so it's probably the easiest way. It's called Restore the Rock, Erick Knickerbocker, just like the Knicks. It's probably the easiest way to get it right now. Really appreciate you guys having me on today and talking culture. I could do this all day.
Yeah, we obviously, Kenny writes. We like to sell books. We like to read books. I have probably read more in the last 2 years than I have any time in my life, just because of Kenny, honestly. The guy's constantly writing them. I have to keep reading them. But I think books help, man. If nothing else, you can take one golden nugget. It's like going to clinic season, right? You don't go to Glazier and take everything from the Glazier clinic for the whole weekend. You take one thing home. So, hopefully someone can read your book and find that one thing that helps them with their culture this year.
Yeah, I think there's like enough in there that you're going to be able to pull a few things that might work for you. And again, you guys talked about it a lot. It has to you don't just pull things from books and then that's your culture. I think that's what you'll see in my book is like all of these different influences in our team. That's kind of what your culture is built on. And that's kind of how we've built it. So I think there's some things you can take, but again, ultimately you gotta build it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, real quick, we're going to mention our sponsors, then we'll start shutting her down here. Ace Sports, you can email mark.bridges@acesports.com. If you want to get into the video board world, man, the fundraising application behind that is huge. Yes, you get to celebrate people. There's a lot that goes in having a nice place, having the nice board. It's a lot of fun, but the fundraising is the cheat code. So jump in, email Mark, figure out what they can do to get something set up at your school. Winning Edge Performance Analytics, talk to Doug. Go to the website. Check out the product schedule. He does the one-on-ones. He'll schedule and walk you through it and let you know what you can get from him. Listen, buying back your Saturdays and your Sunday time because you already tagged out your whole game film was pretty awesome last year. That was one of the key pieces. Not to mention all the analytics you're getting during the game and now before a game. So, getting all the reports built into it now is just making it that much better. And, of course, our friends over at Blended Threads, email Morgan@blendedthreadsllc.com. See what she can help you out. Build out that pro shop, get your, spirit team or whatever, do all the thing. Bleacher Creatures, man, you can do shirts for them, whatever you need to do to make your school be successful. I think that's about it. Eric, if somebody wants to reach out to you on social media, where do they find you at?
I'm on Twitter at Coach Knickerbocker, since my name is too long. One. You couldn't make it this. So that's where I am.
Awesome. Coach Simpson.
All things FB Coach Simpson. So at FB Coach Simpson on Twitter, FBCoachSimpson.com if you want to look through any books or look at headsets, free magazine. So a lot of stuff over there.
Awesome. I'm at Coach Chamber OK on X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. We want to thank you for being a listener of the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you'll join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.